Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to the show. Back with Brandon Benson here at Quillflower Gravelthorn. All kinds of stuff right here on my little fire pit area, and I'm trying not to get burned up. Something just popped out of the pit before I went on air. I don't know what the heck that was, but I'm safe. Hopefully you all are too. It rained terribly here today in Nebraska, at least in this part of the state. Here in Louisville, it's a little bit south of the Omaha area. So, all right, let's get to it. We got a lot to cover. We got the drinks. Tonight, we're going to start our study of A Christmas Carol, this special edition put out by Stephen Skelton, and exploring all the Christian symbolism in that great Christmas classic by Charles Dickens. Also, you see here we got Darth Vader. I forget how I came about this decoration, but it's not in all of our standard stuff. I just stumbled across it when I was looking for something else today. Kind of, when you get him here, that, so first of all, looks pretty cool with his Santa Claus hat, and then the snowball here, Death Star. But anyway, the drop back here behind him with that fire, looks like he's on Mustafar. All you Star Wars nerds out there. All right, let's get rid of Darth. Boy, it looks so cool. Okay, we're gonna put him on the shelf back here behind the tree. He's gonna keep watch all the rest of the holiday season for us. All right, our drinks tonight. So, of course, I'm not gonna put a wine bottle on the tree. However, wife and I tonight enjoyed this little white Joel Gott. Never had it before, as far as I know. A Sauvignon Blanc, however you want to say that. I like it. Not overpowering sweet. Kind of more of a dry, which I'm a big fan of dry wines, whether they be red or white. I'm more of a fan of red wine. I love all wine. I'm not an expert on it. I don't pretend to be. But anyway, I thought I'd share because I thought that was good. We're going to have some more for our Thanksgiving dinner. On that note, I want to tell you about the stuffing I make. I make my own croutons. I did that tonight, so gotta get the croutons made. I just use regular bread and some olive oil over the top and get them somewhat soaked in that, and then I get some fresh rosemary and what other spices, sage and parsley, chop that up. I sprinkle some dried parsley and basil on top, and then lemon, squeeze some lemon over that. I'm telling you, it comes out amazing. So anyway, I did that. Our preparation's underway. We'll get the we got the turkey thawing. May have to speed that up a little. We bought him on Saturday. He's been sitting in the fridge. He's still hard, just like a rock. So I don't know. Hopefully we get him thawed out. But anyway, first step's done to making my stuffing, getting those croutons made. So anyway, if you ever want to try that out, I recommend it. It's worked for me in the past. Hasn't failed yet. So okay, that's the wine, and I blabbed on about the croutons and the stuffing. Our beer tonight. Now this will go on the tree. This is F5 by Coop down in Oklahoma. This is my favorite IPA. I'm a big fan of the Coop beers. They just got great stuff. I love the top of their cans. You see the state of Oklahoma there. So anyway, F5, obviously a tornado reference. You can see on the can there, tornado. And then especially as an Iowa State fan, I love the Cyclones, so I relate to that. And then, just having my wife from Oklahoma, and wherever we're back, we bring back a bunch of this, like all their stuff. But this is my favorite, the F5. It's a just a regular IPA. I'll drink this one any time of the year. Big on the IPAs during the summer months, but I'll drink this year round, and it will be one of the non-holiday seasonal beers that will find its way up on the tree. Of course, we got the Ames Lager. What else? Might be something else up there already, but anyway, there'll be 2 or 3 non-seasonals that go up there before we're all said and done. So, real good. I think on Untapped, I give this a 4. So, pick it up if you find it, or let me know. I'll bring some back for all my friends. Consider you all friends. I'll bring some back from Oklahoma for you. Okay, let's get into the song of the night. A hip-hop song. I said the title of the album is A Little Something for Everyone, so I wanted to include, you know, a hip-hop rap song on there. And so that's what we did with Wrapping Paper, spelled R-A-P-P-I-N-G. I know there's been other songs out there with the play on words of wrapping paper and rap and, you know, rap music, but this is the direction I wanted to go with this one. And there's not an actual music video to this, but we'll play some of it for you here. I was gonna reach and show you the song, but since there's no real video, I guess we don't need to do that tonight. So I'll crank it up here. You can follow along. I like the words to this, the lyrics. I came up with, I would say, probably about 50% on this one. It wasn't all me on this one. I needed a little help. So anyway, here we go. Wrapping Paper. I remember when I was giving Sono the instructions after we got the lyrics together of the sound I wanted, and I kind of wanted that beginning there where you kind of get some horns and some bells in there maybe. I wanted to open like that, you know, make it, well, hip hop, but also give it that Christmas touch. I think that was done well in the intro.
Christmas season, we lighting the spark. Sleigh bell jingle, bringing joy from the heart. Shopping bag stack, got that festive flair. Wrapping paper crew, spreading love everywhere. Storm the stores, it's a holiday rush. Pockets full of cheer, got that Christmas clutch. Snagging deals quick like a festive pro. Gifts for the fan, watch the love overflow. Wrap it up smooth with a bow that pops. Paper so clean, make the whole block stop. Red and green vibes, got that wrapping finesse. Folding every edge, yo, I'm facing the test. From the kids to the crew, everybody's hyped. Each gift they hit got the mood feeling right. Tape it, tie it, make it look so clean. Wrapping paper game, living out the dream. Wrapping paper.
Yeah, yo, we wrapping weekly. Gifts for the loved ones beneath the Christmas tree. Fold the tape and make it shine real bright. Spread love and joy in the winter light. Wrapping paper. Yeah, we gift it with love. Every gift wraps for the smiles everywhere. From the heart to the hands.
Another little note there at the chorus part in there. I wanted a female voice. I think that just came off just amazing. I love it. Good song to jam down to.
Sleigh on the move, got my car in a glide. Stocking up on treasures for the Christmas tide. Books for sis, a watch for my dad. Toys for the kids, you're the best that I grab.
Fast forward here. All right, everyone. That's wrapping paper. Oh gosh, what a fun song! I had a blast putting that one together. As we were listening to it there. One thing stuck out to me, and I had not caught before. It was definitely a AI generated part of the lyrics where he was talking about the different gifts for people in the family, and I thought that was real cool. That got captured in there. So, like I said, I came up with like 2 or 3 lines with the chorus, and probably the rest of that one was AI. So anyway, I thought it was cool. Regardless of how it came about, I enjoy it. Maybe something you can listen to after you go, if you're a Black Friday gift shopping, and come home and start wrapping the presents. Okay, let's move on to something else here. We are going to jump into the study of A Christmas Carol. Now, this is something I have done for years on Facebook. I haven't done it probably 4 or 5 years. I read this edition, Stephen Skelton. I know I've showed it to you a few times. This special edition of A Christmas Carol, and he's got all these amazing footnotes throughout all the staves. Those are the chapters and how Dickens organized the book. So it's the actual story, but along with it, you got footnotes and side notes off to the side explaining specifically hidden stuff, hidden Christian symbolism and messages that Dickens put in there on purpose. And a lot of this stuff is just lost to us due to advances, in language and understanding and cultural dynamics of Victorian England and here today. So that's why some of the stuff isn't obvious to us, but to the readers of Dickens' time, a lot of the stuff they would have understood what it all meant. So it's just fascinating from that perspective. And I tell you what, every year I don't necessarily read it, front to back every year, but I do pull it out and take a glimpse at some of this stuff because it's just fascinating. And I hope you find it fascinating too as we dive into it. So, all right, we're going to start, of course, right at the beginning here. And do any of you out there, do you know how it starts out? Probably a famous line. If you don't have it popping up in your memory, it surely will click the second I read it here. Marley was dead to begin with. There was no doubt whatever about that. The register of the burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner, Scrooge. He had signed it. And Scrooge's name was good upon change for anything he chose to put his hand to. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. All right, so let's start there. The opening line, Marley was dead to begin with. The side note here that Skelton makes is that Dickens begins with death, just as the gospel story begins with the necessity of death to self. That's Luke 9:23-24. Let me read that verse for you. Then he said to them all, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will save it." So it's fascinating that right out of the gate, to start something, we begin with death. And you can see it's easy to say this after you know the story, but looking back on it, you can see, how right out of the gate, he started with some foreshadowing there and getting right to the message right away. The name Scrooge itself, that's a colloquial word, and at the time that meant to squeeze. And that really fits Scrooge, doesn't it? it really brings to light his primary sin, which is greed. To squeeze. He wants to squeeze every single cent and every bit of savings and squeeze every bit of profit out of anything he does. Okay, so moving on here. Another thing to bring up, dead as a doornail, right? What does that mean? Because, you know what, growing up and hearing that, you know, I've heard it outside the story, and surely you had too. And I was thinking about this earlier today when I was reviewing, preparing this. I never thought anything about it other than thinking that it's just like a self-explanatory term. Like, what could be more dead than a doornail, right? Right? You know, you got dead wood and a nail and in the wood. It's dead, right? So there's further explanation here. A doornail was actually a large-headed nail used in medieval doors. And once hammered through and clenched, it was dead. Dickens uses that common expression to really emphasize the finality, and of course foreshadowing that spiritual death that the Scrooge experiences. So, ain't that interesting? It's actually, dead as a doornail is actually kind of a mechanical term, you could say, not just like a expression that we wouldn't give a second thought to. We automatically know what it means. So anyway, there's that. And I won't read the story going on for you, but he goes on, Dickens does. He started with the death of Marley, explaining the death certificate. We went through that, I read that part. But there's probably 3 or 4, 5, maybe 2 to 3 full pages of him just going through death, explaining the death and talking about death itself. And so the point there, you know, the opening, you know, the subject matter, the death of Marley, it's a great juxtaposition to where the story starts and where it ends. You know, we begin with the death of someone else, talking about sin, and over the course of the story, we're going to see the spiritual death and rebirth of Scrooge. And so the beginning starts with death, which commonly we think of a beginning starting with birth, and then he ends the story not with death, but with birth, a rebirth, a new spiritual awakening in Scrooge. So it's just a cool way that Dickens writes this and kind of flips things around, and that's what makes this story just so rich and special, I think, the way he does that. Continuing on, let's talk about the chapters and just the organization of it. Dickens lists these as staves, stave 1, stave 2, stave 3. I think there's 4 altogether, stave 4. And he did that, you know, obviously those are the chapters, but stave is a unique and purposeful word that he wanted. The title, A Christmas Carol, of course we all know what a carol is. We went through this last weekend, talking about the difference between a hymn and a carol. So that's another way he just wanted to give a reverence to the Christmas season, and thought of the tale as something beautiful like a Christmas carol. And so he divided it up in staves, and a stave is a stanza to a song. So just another beautiful creative point that Dickens gets in there. I just love that creativity that he has, going outside of the norms of everything. If you're reading along in this book, or whatever edition you have of it, in this book it's page 10, but whatever version you're reading, the first time Scrooge says "Bah humbug," keep this in mind next time you go through and read this, because you'll notice the number and the frequency, the volume of use of "bah humbug" gradually gets lesser and lesser until at the very end, Scrooge does not say that anymore. Now, humbug, the word, I always wondered, I shouldn't say that, I'm totally opposite. In fact, I've never wondered what it meant. You know, it's kind of like dead as a doornail. I grew up just humbug. It just means you're grumpy or annoyed or nonsense or something like that. It actually has a definition. It means deception or nonsense. And so what we see when we're reading that, it's Scrooge. He rejects the truth of Christmas just as many reject the truth of Christ. And this is another reflection in this of a biblical passage. This goes to John 3:19, really. Moving on here, let's see, what else? Oh, another powerful scene in Stave 1. The introduction of Fred, Scrooge's nephew. I love Fred. What a wonderful character. It's noted in this edition of the book that Charles Kent, a friend of Dickens, he remarked that the description of Fred was a total self-description of Dickens himself in every detail. I just find that cool, heartwarming, and fascinating that Dickens kind of wrote himself in there. So he was Fred. We have this conversation between Fred and Scrooge, and they're talking about Christmas, and of course Fred invites him over. Scrooge rejects, doesn't want to go over to dinner on Christmas Day to Fred's, and they continue to quarrel a little bit, and Scrooge says, referring to those who celebrate Christmas, "Every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled in his own pudding and buried with a stick of holly through his heart." Pretty strong, right? Well, let's think. It's not just a play on Christmas words and symbols, you know, with holly and that, but it also summons imagery of vampires, right? So during, you know, the medieval era, it was common for murderers, it was customary for murderers in medieval times to be buried with a stake driven through their hearts. It wasn't just a vampire, you know, thing. So it's some strong language there from Scrooge as he considers those who enjoy Christmas, like you and I do, to be just as good as murderers. And just another example of Dickens playing with words and imagery and symbols of the time and kind of flipping it on its head, or using it, rather in this case, using it in a different manner. Anyway, I always thought that line was pretty good. It's such powerful hatred for Christmas. Okay, one of my favorite side notes that Skelton includes, it's on page 13, and it's this exact scene featuring Marley's ghost here, and it's talking. I'm getting messed up with my notes here. I should start out talking about the next group that comes to visit Scrooge after Fred. It's those charity collectors, the two portly gentlemen that wander in after Fred leaves, and Scrooge refuses, you know, to donate to them. And so this side note here in this edition that Skelton refers to kind of harkens back to Marley's ghost a little bit, and you know, talking about, you know, just how dreadful and sinful these two guys were, Marley, and then, you know, passing that on to Scrooge. So Scrooge's cold response here, this is kind of the side note. The portly gentleman who visits Scrooge in the counting house on Christmas Eve to ask for the donation of the poor, They explain that thousands are in want of common necessities and common comforts, and that many of them would rather die in workhouses or go to, or prisons. And Scrooge's, they'd rather die than go to the workhouses or prisons, excuse me. And Scrooge's cold response is, are there no prisons? No union workhouses? Are they still in operation? And when they persist, through this, Scrooge is still stubborn, and Skelton's footnote rightly points out here that Scrooge's attitude, it perfectly parallels the priest and the Levite in Jesus' parable, the Good Samaritan. Just as those religious leaders saw the wounded man but passed on the other side, Scrooge sees and even hears the desperate need of the poor, but deliberately refuses to get involved, instead choosing to pass them by. And then they leave. So that's a powerful early scene there, and it really sets up, some kind of the central Christian question of the entire novella. Will Scrooge remain the man who passes by the other side, or will he become the neighbor who shows mercy? And you'll notice later after the transformation and the final stave that Scrooge anonymously, he sends the giant prize turkey to the Cratchits and becomes a second father to Tiny Tim. And that finally lives out, that mercy of the Good Samaritan story. So anyway, I have rambled on. We've gone almost a half hour here. I may have to break up our study and the song exploration into two separate segments. I don't know. I'll think about it. Of course, leave a comment. Let me know how you'd like me to organize this. But anyway, this is a good place to stop the show here. It's, and this is only like 10 pages into this story. It's a short story, but even just those 10 pages, Dickens just packs so much in there, right? 3 powerful, I don't know if you call them scenes, they kind of all take place in the counting house there, but 3 powerful points really emphasize. You got Scrooge's interaction with others, and I think that's just the overlying theme here in this early part of the book. I didn't mention Bob Cratchit at all. Of course, he's described early on, and we see him sitting there as this, symbol of humility and just being cheerful with what you have, and Scrooge treating him as dirt. It's all that's obvious. So I really didn't get much into him, but we will later on. And so you see this where Scrooge treats him, his employee, Bob Cratchit, as dirt. Then he treats his nephew as dirt. So you got the employee, a family member, and then 2 Samaritans come in off the street, just strangers, and he treats them like garbage as well. And so you got 3 points there, 3 different kinds of people out in society, people that he knows, people that work for him, people he's related to, and then just people off the street, and his reaction and his treatment to him is all the same. Treats him like crap, right? So anyway, I think that's really what to take away out of those first pages there, the first part of it. Right off the bat, man, Dickens dives really into the hearts of all this, and we'll continue exploring it all. Tomorrow, I'm hoping, I got my parents coming to visit for one of my daughter's little school concerts. There is a couple songs on the album that reference my family. You can't tell it from the lyrics, but my family can. So I'm hoping to visit with them, get them to be our next guest. Hopefully you enjoyed my wife Ryan being with us last night, and hopefully you get to enjoy my parents tomorrow night. Okay, This is the longest one we've done so far. I hope you enjoyed it. All right, everyone. Have a great Tuesday upcoming. Thanksgiving week finally here. Boy, I can't wait. Looking forward to tomorrow. I just gotta go to work one more day, and Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whole weekend. One of the best weeks of the year. All right, everyone. Check back with you tomorrow.